So
I mean, we can start wrapping things up. I think.
no, I don't know what time we have here. No, I got plenty of questions. I mean, we talked for 16 hours straight.
Yes.
And I'm just thinking if there's anything else we want to jump to before we get more into that. Now, just real quick to tie up the rest of Proposal 3.
Yeah.
The idea that parents having a say. Do you think that parents should have a say in their kids with transitioning versus the way the language is right now on the ballot?
In general, yes, I do. I understand the arguments against parental intervention, but just my own view as our constitutional rights and our equal treatment under the law, a lot of it does kick in once we become adults. And so when we are children, we are subjected to certain things underneath, our parent. And so, with a lot of medical decisions, parental involvement makes sense, and including, transitioning and just, the medical decisions that allow minor to have their outside reflect their inside. And so I do in general lean towards allowing or ensuring the parents have some sort of say in the matter, because a tattoo or piercings or things like that, I would want to have a say over my daughters in that regard. Like what, so yeah, I totally empathize with that side of things.
Yeah, I think kids need parents.
Mm-hmm.
I think that actually probably goes a lot further than, kids needing guidance from the parents for a long. I still go to my parents for guidance.
Mm-hmm.
I think most people do that. But as I understand the way you said that, do you think, is it your position that parents should have a say?
Yes.
And do you think your position is supported by the ballot proposal, or do you think that this is a situation where you hope you can introduce legislation? Well, I don't think you can.
Right.
I think the way the Constitution works, you can't introduce legislation to tweak an amendment to the Constitution.
I would be. It's not enough to get me to vote against Proposal 3, but it is one of those where, if it was then a follow-up ballot measure 2 years from now in order to tighten up some of the language, because yes, do I acknowledge that some of the language in Proposal 3 is a little bit too broad? Sure. I think overall it is more good than bad, and pretty much go back to 2018 and the Independent Redistricting Commission. I am strongly opposed to gerrymandering. I viewed a lot of problems with that ballot measure, but it was still better than the status quo. It was a step in the right direction from what we would have if it didn't pass. So I voted for it despite knowing I had my reservations. And then sure enough, this last year, districts got redrawn, and they still allowed for a backdoor way to gerrymander things based on communities of interest. My concerns bore out, and so I wish there was another ballot measure to remove that from the Independent Redistricting Committee. So likewise with Proposal 3, I can recognize there are ways in which I would want to see it written a little differently. And so, in the future, I would like to see another ballot measure come along to tighten up some of that language, but it's still much better than the alternative of the 1931 law, in my opinion. And that's why I'm, very comfortable voting for it, because it's options. It's not, is this perfect? Yes or no. It's, is this better than the alternative? And it is.
There's an idea popped into my head about quantum theory, the concept that of infinite futures and probabilities, and the idea of right at that moment of conception that there is an infinite number of possibilities at that point in time, many of which include life, and a life that is from my perspective, no matter if that kid is in an interracial marriage, it transitions, I don't care. I think that life is going to be sacred no matter what. Kind of tying those two ideas back together. That's just my opinion on that one.
Mm-hmm.
I do know that we are coming close to the time, and I want to give you a couple things that were said in the beginning that I think are important that perhaps we should have started with. We're here at the Speakeasy.
Yes.
One of the concerns is, what are you going to do to help small businesses?
Yes, and I do generally think that our economic system is set up for the benefit of the powerful. So larger businesses have an easier go of it than smaller businesses.
What gives you that idea?
Yeah, exactly. And so when it comes to regulations, the larger entities have better lobbyists that then make sure that regulations almost act as, barriers to entry for new competitors, the smaller startups to come in. And they have been able to, the government is no longer serving the role that I wanted to serve, and that I identified as the proper role when I was in business school, of working in the public interest to protect it against the free market abuses. Instead, I do think over the last several decades, part of the reason why the minimum or the middle class has shrunk is that our government has been working for the interests of the powerful and large business especially. And so, yes, having somebody who's going to go to Lansing to make sure when an issue comes up, big business does not need the playing field tilted in their favor anymore. We need to balance it back out and tilt it back towards doing what's in the best interest of our small businesses, because they are what build our communities. And they're the businesses that I enjoy going to just as an individual. I like getting to meet business owners and showing up and having that sense of, okay, yeah, this is what makes Brighton Brighton. This isn't, just found everywhere. This is here. And so, when it comes to the specific issues, you really have to then kind of get into the weeds, and it's not something that, I've incorporated into my campaign as, part of my go-tos. But I do know that, when it comes to regulations especially, regulations fall more heavily on small businesses rather than the larger entities that have crafted the carve-outs in those regulations for themselves, basically because of lobbying and just, the influence of the campaign dollars and pressure.
Yeah, I think there are two things people are getting pretty sick of. One is people throwing, as you say, throwing bombs at each other.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is at the top. There's a lot of problems with, and people call it the swamp.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad that you're doing what you can to try to fix that. I think everybody probably, well, not everybody, most people probably agree with that. I had a great question for you. Just give me a second.
Mm-hmm.
So I got up super early this morning. I was out, like I said, hunting this morning up in a tree. So I'm a little exhausted.
And that's where
and
I'm just grateful.
I was up late last night playing basketball. I'm making excuses for the, I don't know how people watch this. Hopefully nobody. We'll see. I hope at least something good comes from this.
And it's something that, yeah, do I have a great answer to, how I'm going to be the best state senator for small businesses? No, just like with mental health, it's difficult sometimes to come up with ideas and solutions whole cloth. You have some ideas out there but when it comes to these areas that have not become the partisan issues really, like, mental health or small businesses, there's not a partisan divide on it. In reality, both sides pay lip service, but there's not like the tangible ideas that are entered into the public conversation and debated, partly because I think, yeah, it doesn't add to the division, so the media doesn't really care. And those who are powerful, they don't want it entered because then they'll, everybody will realize, yeah, why isn't this already passing through Lansing? All right, I do have to put in one thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
You and I, we've been alive, since the 80s.
Yep.
Our entire lives, not one thing has passed through Lansing that the Michigan Republicans did not support, because our entire life, the state Senate has been controlled by the Michigan Republicans. So every single thing that has passed out of Lansing at least had to get Republican support, overall support for it. The same cannot be said for the Democrats, Michigan Democrats. We just had 8 years that the Republicans were able to do anything and everything they wanted, and the Democrats couldn't stop them at all. I think our state would be better off if we gave the Democrats a chance to, give them all three: the state house, the state Senate, and the governor's mansion, and give the Democrats a chance to show that we could, at least compared to the our 30-something years in this state, I think we would be able to see some progress.
How's that going on a federal level?
I personally think the Inflation Reduction Act, the bipartisan infrastructure deal, those are monumental legislative accomplishments that are not far left radical. And I mean, the infrastructure deal, that was something that Trump wanted to do, but he couldn't get done when he controlled Congress and everything. But the Democrats were able to. And so I do think, in general, Democrats are better able to govern. Obviously, I'm biased, but I also think it just comes from, in the 80s and 90s, the Republicans, to me, adopted this mindset of government is the problem. And so when that is their mantra, you had Reagan come along and say that, then it's in their best interest for government to remain a problem. If government is out there solving things, it undermines their entire reason for being a political party and pushing the idea government's the problem. Government's the problem.
I'm still going to keep playing the devil's advocate here.
Yes.
How's Detroit doing? When's the last time they had a Republican anything? So you have a city.
Yeah.
That was
Duggan? Was he Republican? I don't remember. Was he independent? I don't remember.
It was Republican.
Yeah.
No. You take.
I
think
will
it
say
was the
one party
one
control.
Or two richest cities in the world.
Yes.
You try some of the more social things, because it seemed like it'd be, if any city could handle it, that's Detroit. Didn't turn out so good.
Yes. I will say there's no example
how do we
of
not repeat that?
Single party control, of like total dominance, the way Detroit is, the way Mississippi and Alabama are on the other end. For every urban decline, you do have states that are just as equally Republican and just as less glamorous or less of an example of that you'd point to for success. But just in general, like if I was in Wayne County, I'd be voting for a Republican county commissioner. I would want to see some balance, some voice involved. Do I want the Republicans to have a majority? Not necessarily, but would I want them at least to have a seat at the table?
Democrat. Yeah, some of the things you said today, surprising, and I hope that there are more like you. I think that you might be a bit of a unicorn within your own party.
We just don't speak up very often. Like the loudest voices.
You should.
That's why I'm.
Up. That's why I know that I appreciate the way you're doing this. There are loud voices on both sides, and I appreciate their right to talk. And I mean, we can.
Yeah, we should.
I was going to ask you about the parental distribution and how that divides up wealth, and also the idea of some people saying that other people shouldn't have the right to have an opinion, or that their opinion causes them harm.
Right. I strongly disagree with all
general
that.
Impact.
I'm a free speech.
And that's what I appreciate about you, is the fact that you believe in free speech. You believe that people should have the ability to think, and encourage them to think. You don't try to control anybody's opinions. I can tell that ultimately what you want to do is what you believe is best, not best for you. And I think there's a lot of people that would be relieved to know that there are at least some people running for office. And I'm not making a comment about anybody else. Full disclosure, I voted for your opponent. But a lot of that has to do with I've actually spoken to her. I generally like her.
And she's going to vote in Lansing the way that aligns with. And so you're not wrong to vote for her. I don't think everybody should vote for me, because if I get to Lansing and I'm doing things that they wouldn't want me to be doing on bills, they shouldn't be voting. They should be voting for who represents them.
I do have one last question for you.
Okay.
It's not a joke. And I know that they're trying to kick us out of here.
Yes.
Probably because they're sick of hearing my voice. If you've already told us what you're hopefully going to do if you get elected. If you don't get elected, how are you going to help the community? How are you going to help society? What is, not that you should be thinking about losing,
right?
But what things are you going to do or continue to do to help out from your position?
All I have ever been able to view my capacity as an activist, and I've been involved since 2008, is to just represent my brand of democratic politics, in that I try to be the Democrat that I'd want others to be. And from within my party, I show that, this is a fine option. And I get a lot of people who appreciate it. I get my critics from the left who hate that I give a platform to people on the right sometimes. And it's okay, they can disagree. I'm still going to be doing me. And that's what I will continue to do if I don't win on November 8th. I will continue to just be that example of somebody on the left who's trying to be a diplomat, because regardless of Democratic versus Republican, I think our political environment needs more diplomats and fewer combatants. And so that's where I am so grateful for you for joining me and being a diplomat.
Any last thoughts? Any last things that you want to say? I mean, it's your show.
No, I mean, it was our show. And no, this was what I was hoping for. So I'm so grateful to you for showing.
Give it a B, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think B+. I mean,
all right. I'll take that.
I mean, and that's me, because I rambled for way too long.
No, I think you gave very thoughtful answers, and that's what we're trying to do here.
Yeah.
People have much better, I don't know, people much better, but they understand. Yeah. And I understand. And I think that whether they vote for you or don't vote for you, I think they're going to have respect for you, which is all you can really ask for. That's the best possible outcome, I think.
Absolutely. So thank you so much.
All right.
And
anytime.
Thanks to the Speakeasy for hosting.
Yeah.
Take care.